Yeah, good Saturday morning, everybody. It's about 8:32 in the morning. Try to do as best I can, seeing as though my mom's off on the weekend, of course. But there was one long rant here, and I'm not going to read it all. I'm just going to post a link down below so you guys can read it yourselves. But it's by a fan that wants to basically kind of, I'm guessing from what I've read here, I'm guessing wants to kind of clear the air as to what the group is all about. Now, basically, from what I have read, his point being cleared, his point, I guess, is a bit clear, in a sense. See, the group that he's a part of, and I'm a part of, as a fan, that is, as a fan, as an overall fan, because I like to hear from both sides, or read what both sides have to say. Basically, he wants to clear the air about one thing. First of all, the one thing he talks about here is he has nothing against characters, what was it put it? Going through a lot of trials and suffering. He has nothing against that. He does that with his own characters. Well, not his own characters, but he does the same thing in his own fan fiction stories involving the characters of Sally Acorn from Sonic and Kitty Catswell from Tough Puppy. So he doesn't have a problem with that. What he has a problem with is taking all the characters that Ian Flynn wrote into, I guess he says, suffer and put trials through. What he's mainly trying to point out is the group's about, the group's about, hey, if you're going to write a story and you're going to put such and such characters through these trials and suffering, have a point behind it. Don't just say, oh, it's because of this and that and whatever. I mean, he goes out to say that, he basically points out that Archie Sonic made characters like Sally and Bunny suffer pointlessly. None of it led to anything memorable or even intriguing. In other words, there was no real meaning behind it. That's the point he's trying to get across. And he's got a right to his opinion. Everybody does have a right to their own opinion. But what he's trying to say is nothing really meaningful happened, nothing memorable. Nothing to intrigue your interest, to get you to want to see what happens next. And then the other thing he's upset about, and the reason for this group is, and he basically asked this question to a lot of people, and you can read it down below, is basically, did this adventure they went on, Before Worlds Collide, did it really put Sonic to the test and felt he owes it to Sally to save her from Eggman? The way he looks at it, no. This fan doesn't look at it like this adventure did anything to make Sonic want to push himself and make him feel like, hey, I need to do what I need to do whatever it takes to get Sally back from Eggman. No, it didn't. He even looks at the fact that when they did Team Fighters, when they split into two groups, when he did Team Fighters, that Sonic, Amy, and Tails didn't even take their roles seriously in Team Fighters. He does point out that there were occasions, I think he says it somewhere later down here, but I'm going to get to the point in a little bit. He does point out something along the lines of, it seemed that the whole adventure was like one big game to them. And that you can count on one hand how many times they acted like they gave a crap about what would happen to their friends. That's what I was talking about. There were some moments. And then he asks the question, and then he points out the question of, and then he asks the question about Sally becoming Mecha Sally. Did weaponizing her lead to any real drama and development for her character while being a robot? And he looks at it like no. Now, I can understand where he's coming from there. Because it's like I mentioned in the previous video. You know, you didn't see no real like inner struggle or anything kind of like image of her trying to fight against what was going on. You didn't see nothing. All it was, and some people have pointed this out, all it was just rinse and repeat kind of deal. It's like find Sally in a location, fight her for a little bit, and then let her go. It was like rinse and repeat. It's like they didn't have no real meaning behind it. And then he asked about, you know, when Bunny ran off to her uncle, obviously. Like what point did it, you know, what character development did that do for her? Did it do any good? He looks at that and he says, no, it didn't do any good. Because here's why. He looks at it like, here you have a character that just ran off and said, and basically left a note telling Antoine and everybody else, hey, please forgive me for what I'm about to do. And she runs off to her uncle, as obviously we see in Sonic Universe. But here's the thing, and some people will argue this with this individual. There was a meaning. You see, when you look at it from a reality standpoint, mentally she just couldn't take it anymore. She just couldn't, you know, even though she was happy to be flesh and blood again and could work around it, mentally, after all that's happened with her best friend, Sally, and then with Antoine, mentally she just broke down. She just said, you know, I can't take this anymore. I got to be what I was. I got to go back and be what made me who I was, what brought me to the dance. So there was a bit of development, but I can see what it's saying didn't really have much development because you didn't focus on her being at her uncle's camp trying to get legionized or whatever. I can understand that part. Now, basically they just want to know, how could anybody support a story like this when, you know, obviously from what they've seen, the cast, game cast, comic cast, didn't grow from it at all. It's like, where was the growth? Where was the development from this story, from this overall arc, if you will? I mean, he points out, he even points out that, he even asked the question, did Eggman even get punished? You know, for what he had done? No. Basically, he looks at it like it just got magically wiped away, as if it never happened. And then he points out, too bad they couldn't do that to our minds instead, so we could forget about this piece of crap. You know, basically, he's just saying, hey, did we not... Basically, it's like, where was the consequences? Where was the climax? That's what he wants to know. And then he points out that what made the story arc even worse was Ian was trying to shove the comic cast aside in favor of the game cast, and of course give out more, as he calls it, nauseating Sonic Amy moments. Now he does point out that he's not against Tails and Amy getting spotlights, right, in character development. Nor is he against Sonic and Amy having moments of being closer friends, as long as it's respectful, of course. What he's against is them getting lead roles by default, and then shoving utter disrespect to Sally and her relationship with Sonic by having Amy and Sonic flirting with each other, as if Sally being a robot doesn't bother them that much, if at all. Now he says that comic fans disagree with that point all they want. But he says the fact still stands, Ian showed utter disrespect to Sally and her love life. He says you don't show Amy happy in Sonic's arms, and then her and Sonic having playful banter and then okay, he says you don't show her. He says comic fans. Let me start over. He says comic fans disagree with that point, what I mentioned above. He says all they want, but the fact still stands. Ian showed, in his opinion, utter disrespect to Sally and her love life. He says he points out that you don't show Amy happy in Sonic's arms, and then her and Sonic having playful banter with Amy. And then have Sonic having playful banter with Amy is what he wanted to say. Well, Sally helplessly is Eggman's robotic slave, unless you're intentionally trying to shove the Son-Amy pairing down our throats. So in other words, what he's upset about is why would you have an Amy being happy being around Sonic, being in his arms, whatever, and all that, with the little heart emoticon and all that, and have him, throw around playful banter as if they're flirting with each other. Well, Sonic's actual girlfriend, the one he had before this whole thing started, is a robotic slave. Why would you do that? And I'll get into that in a moment. And he points out this is why this group was made. It's because they're angry at Archie Sonic for doing stuff like this. For basically not taking their stories seriously. Not taking their arcs seriously. Not taking the comic book seriously. Now he does point out for the record that he has no problems with them going through trials and hard times, as long as it has a point to it and the cast takes the conflict seriously enough that you care about what's going on. But he points out that again, that's not what happened. He points out the cast didn't really care that much about what happened. Hardly any of them did. It was if they thought, oh, just business as usual. And then he says, if I had to sum up the horrible, lackadaisically and disturbingly carefree attitude of the heroes in spite of everything that was going on in a picture, I would point directly at the primary cover of 241. The cover is the empathy of what this arc has infiltrated me to no end. He then goes on to say that Sally, Bunny, and Antoine all went through near hell by Eggman not even 7 issues ago. And what are they doing here? They're smiling and acting like life is grand. And what makes this even more disturbing, and this is what he says, and I quote, is the fact that this was not the only cover where this comic book basically makes this whole epic arc a joke. Remember the SU cover of Sonic sticking his tongue out at Eggman from behind while in a bizarre Hitler-style statue? And do I even need to mention the one where Sonic is making a horrible joke where Knuckles is fighting Thrash, who made all his Penders Echidna race character, who made all his Penders Echidna race disappear, and not to mention one of them was his own girlfriend Julie Sue. And then he points out, as if someone said to him and anybody else, if the heroes aren't going to act like they give a damn, why should we? Now he does say he's a Sally fan. Now he is a Sally fan, like I am, but he is disgusted that she's been given. But he says he's a Sally fan who's disgusted she's been given second-rate status because she's not a game character. In fact, the whole redesign screams out to me, and this is to him. This is what he says. The whole redesign screams out to him that, as if they're implying. This is what he said. This is what he believes. This is what his opinion of it is. That the whole redesign screams out to him as if they're implying the comic cast is not good enough unless they look and act and dress exactly like Sonic and his game pals. He basically ends it by saying he thought the whole point of this comic was to be another universe of the Sonic series to explore and stand out from the games, but he guessed that's not true anymore. And then he says, thanks a lot to Sega and Archie. You both made him hate Sonic more and more with every passing day. Alright. Now I know there's going to be some people that when you click on that link and you read the whole thing, if you want to take the time to do that, that you're going to be like, well, what does he mean? Well, let me explain something here. You see, the whole thing with the Mecha Sally arc, I mentioned this before and I'll mention it again. I think as much as, and I'm not defending Ian here, but from what I have read when I finally opened those issues up and add on to the summaries and stuff that I've read in the months leading to 247 and so on, from what I've seen and read, Ian Flynn originally had plans to go in a different direction. But you see, here's the thing though, here's the thing. Yes, Ian Flynn made Amy, Tails, and Sonic the main rescue party, the main hero party in Team Fighters. Here's the reason. Up until about 225, which is right here, everybody, the main cast has always been in these kind of situations. The main cast that's always on the covers, the main cast that's always the ones saving the day have been the Freedom Fighters. Pretty much, in my opinion, I think Sega probably gave him a call and say, look, we don't have a problem with the characters, but we want you to do a story, or down the line, we want to, well basically they probably just said, hey look, we need you to do something with one of your stories to where, I mean look, even I can't figure it out myself, okay? But my honest opinion is, I think there's some kind of a compromise made between both Archie and Sega to where for so many issues the Freedom Fighters, the Satyam cast if you will, they're the main focus, they're the main heroes and all that, they're on the covers, but then for a certain amount of other issues, if not big time events, you got to make the game cast the main focus. And that's obviously what this was about. Making the game cast the main focus of this entire situation of Mecha Sally. Now, I understand what he comes across and he says it feels like they just didn't give a damn. That to them this is just like business as usual. It's just like, oh, we're just going to go stop Eggman and oh, his new robotic slave that just happens to be our best friend. We're going to go stop them and then go off and do it again, la 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 la. I can understand how he feels. I can understand how he feels and where he's coming from, but again, that's where Sega kind of steps in. And yeah, it is upsetting that Sega's been stepping in and basically telling Archie, hey, we're cool with this, but can you do this? It's like, I think it's just a bit of, I look at it as an estranged compromise. Like I said, it's like, for so many issues, you could do the Freedom Fighters and Sonic and all of them as the main heroes and cast. But when it comes to other stories to where, let's say, everybody has to be rescued or certain people have to be rescued, it's got to be the game cast. A good example of this would be, and I believe this individual knows where I'm going with this, 175 to 177. Who was left behind in 175? The game cast. Who rescued everybody in 176? The game cast. Who came together at the end? The entire cast asked. But who was the main focus of those two issues to rescue the characters? The game cast. You see, if you gotta have characters rescued, if you will, it's gotta be the game cast. Obviously that's some kind of pattern going on lately. It's like game cast, game cast, game cast, game cast. End of story. And I know you, and I know people will point, and I know that it's ironic that all of a sudden this is all happening since Ian Flynn came on board. But I think that's been something that I believe Sega's been wanting to. I believe this is a compromise that Sega and RG had going for a while. They just didn't have the writer yet, the individual they needed to make it happen, to make it work. And yeah, that's mainly what it is. I just think they didn't have. I think when Ian Flynn came on board, they saw an opportunity to do that compromise. You know, to make it a reality. But you see, it's more Sega influence than Archie. When you think about it, everything's got to go through them. And if they're okay with the stories, that's fine, but they may add in suggestions. You know, like when Sonic's holding Amy in his arms and you see the heart emoticon or whatever. You know, when you see that and stuff. Yeah, that will upset people. When you see Amy smiling and all googly eye with Sonic and all that, yeah, that's going to upset people. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. As much as it would upset people, it's Sega. Sega has the final word. You can do a good story, they'll green light it, but those sometimes going to make suggestions. And if you want to please them and you don't want them to pull the license on one of your more successful best-selling comics, that not only brings you money, but brings them money, then you're going to want to do what they suggest sometimes. And even if you know it's not going to go over well with the fans, it's got to be done. Because of one reason. It's about the money. It's about money and attracting that newer generation. See, this newer generation, hold on for a second. See, this newer generation is more related to this kind of a Sonic than they are to this one. Why do you think this game was made? See, the point is, it's about this and it's about the new generation. See, the new generation doesn't know much about the Sonic character, or the SatAM characters. They only know about the game characters. Them up there. That's all they know about, those characters up there. And that's why you had the story done the way it was, whether you like it or not. It was done because not only is it about money, making money, it's about attracting the new fans. That's why you had the characters act like they did, act like, you know, as this individual put it, oh, they don't give a damn. It's like, oh, well, we're gonna go beat this guy, beat Eggman and his minions, and one of them beat a robotic version of our friend who's a robotic slave, blah, blah, and then rinse and repeat. You know, that's why you had the playful banter between Sonic and Amy. That's why you have Amy do that hard emoticon sometimes when she's around Sonic or being held by Sonic. It's all about the money, and it's about attracting the game fans, the new generation, which are game fans, to the comic. You know, and again, I know a lot of people may not like it, but it's true. That's the flat-out truth. You know, that's why sometimes you don't get as much emotion in climax or conclusion to a story as you would like. Because it's basically about money and it's about attracting the newer fans. It's about it. That's why you have Sonic act the way he did. That's why you had Sonic act the way he did, especially on the mission. Because if you're just going to have him, Amy Rose, Miles Prower, and T-Pup, just be the ones that are chasing after Eggman trying to save Sally, then you're going to have to make them act as if as this individual pointed out, as if they're in a game. So that way, when a newer reader that's attracted to the comic from the games reads it, it's like every issue is like another level of a Sonic game. That's mainly what it is. Again, you may not like it, but it's the truth. It's the flat-out truth. As far as, everything being wiped under the rug, yeah. The lawsuit with Ken Penders, that didn't help out much. But what are you going to do? I mean, who's to say even if it wasn't for the lawsuit, we weren't going to get this? Who's to say they didn't have this plan from the beginning? Like, hey, it's going to be 20 years. You know what? Let's update the characters. Let's upgrade them. Let's turn them into Let's turn them into almost Sega-fied characters of who they are, like over there. It's like, let's do that. Let's do that. And see what happens. So we can't say whether the lawsuit played a major role. I mean, yeah, it did kind of play a major role down towards the end, but who's to say it wouldn't have played a major role had it never happened? Who's to say this wouldn't have taken place even if there wasn't a lawsuit? I'm just saying. Again, we may not like the fact that certain things this story arc basically didn't have a proper conclusion. But we don't know what the aftermath of Countdown to Chaos is going to be. Countdown to Chaos may have Sally flash back to when she knew about herself as Mecha Sally. Maybe she'll be the one, like Sonic, that doesn't need Nicole to help her remember. She'll just remember. But again, it's all about money and attracting in the new readers. That's why you have the redesigns. That's why you have the wiping under the carpet as if nothing happened. Yeah, it's stupid. It's stupid, but it was done. You talk about the roboticized masters and worlds collide. Yeah, a lot of them were upset. I mean, Amy was clearly upset about what Eggman had done to her. But yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't really focused on later on. It's like there was no real conclusion. Well, there was a conclusion, but the point is there was not any real sense of let's get Eggman back for what he did. Let's pay him back for what he's done. Not just with Worlds Collide, but with what happened before. Yeah, I understand there's no real payoff yet with that, but we cannot underestimate that there will not be, because there's going to be payoff down the line. The point is, we may not like what happened. We may feel that there was no real conclusion, no real climax. But hey, lawsuits or not, we just got to deal with it and see what happens. Maybe they will make up for it down the line with the new issues. So, and again, remember, it's not totally Archie's fault, and it's not totally Ian's. It's the people that support the comic, that let the comic adaptation happen, and that's Sega. And it's about the money and attracting newer fans. So, that's it. My response to this, I'll provide a link down below so you can read what this individual had to say entirely if you want to. And that's about it. God bless and take care.